I do want to harp on this one point because it's very important. It is a lie to suggest that, and I'm not blaming you for this lie, by the way, to suggest that it's just reversible. It's a very dangerous lie, right? There are extreme consequences of going on puberty blockers. It's not like you just pausing a YouTube video and you can come back and say, okay, now I want to watch the rest of the video. Once you have skipped puberty, you have skipped puberty. The consequence can be, if you're a boy and you skipped puberty, you would have literally a micro penis. You can become infertile. You cannot experience sexual pleasure. These are lifelong decisions that are being made by adults who I think are well-meaning. I don't think, Maren Morris wants to harm children, but it is very dangerous when she is using an opinion that people are taking in as facts when they actually believe that their children are going to be rendered happier because of all of this. No child can decide for themselves whether or not they want to have children long term and say, I'm willing to forego this. They don't know that. That's not the information that they're being given when they go to the doctor's office. I also think it's dangerous to assign meaning to what children say. Children have a different idea every single day. Are you actually gender dysphoric or are you just a child? Do you want to be Spider-Man today? Would you support a scenario? And I always think of this scenario because I babysat where I had a little girl who legitimately came to me crying and said she was a mermaid. Like she did not want to go out of the bath. Would you view it as responsible if I said, yes, you are a mermaid and you can sleep in the bath from now on, and now I'm going to take you to get procedures to have scales sewn onto your body? Would that sound absolutely insane to you for me as an adult to do that?
It's stopping it there, and welcome to Mika Reaction Reviews, reacting to things on the internet. And today we are reacting to Candace Owens sitting down with Perez Hilton and the trans man that we saw in the documentary What is a Woman, and they're having a conversation about trans children, right? And now if you think her scenario that she just gave about wanting to be a mermaid and allowing your child to transition to a mermaid is preposterous, we have to remember that people identifying as animals is a part of the queer umbrella. And so in a lot of schools in certain states, if a student identifies as a cat, you have to respect their identity.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a wolf therian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
So I'm not saying people are gonna go now transition their kids into children, but it's not that far off to the scenario that she gave. What she's trying to say is that children have amazing, wild imaginations, and if you give into all their imaginations and their whims as if it's reality, then what is the point of having adults or parents enter their lives? The point of parenting is to give your child direction and guidance. Of course, the older they get, you start to allow them to make their own decisions and make their own mistakes so they can learn from them. But if a child was born to be able to parent themselves, then they will be born being able to walk, talk, and pay their own bills. You're there to direct them, and they're not there to necessarily direct you. Not to say you can't learn anything from children or your children, because I see parents always say that all the time, that I've learned so much from my child. I'm not a parent, so I can't really speak to that. So she talked about the whole micro penis thing, but the thing is, for me, when people talk about puberty blockers, I don't really understand why everyone hyper focuses just on the physical. And I do understand, because I think when we think of puberty, that's what we think of. We think of boob growth and your penis and all your hormones going crazy and growth spurts and all that stuff. We think of very, very physical. But the other thing that happens through puberty is your brain development. It's one of the most important stages of brain development through puberty. So if you're blocking that development, you're not just blocking penis growth and boob growth and facial features and stuff like that, or height or voice, you're blocking brain development, which to me is really important. Not enough people talk about that section of when it comes to puberty blockers. It is a total lie that it's completely pausable or reversible. Some people who are detransitioners have better results than others. Some can detransition and still pass as their biological sex and their desired gender, and some can't. But it's a lie to say that it's completely reversible. I really do implore people who might think, should I even care about this, to go read some of the testimonies on the D-Trans Reddit, which is about 40,000 at the moment, and read some of their testimonies. And it is completely and utterly heartbreaking, some of the things that these people, these kids, these young people, these young adults are going through. And overwhelmingly, most of them will say, if not all of the ones I've read so far, I didn't know this. No one informed me. How can I have made informed consent first, underage, second, without having all the information? You can't make informed consent if you don't have all the information, if you're not well educated about something. And so most surgeries or most massive medical interventions people will have in their lives, when the doctor sits down with them, they give them all the risk, so they can make the best decision for them. Does the means justify the ends? If you have the surgery, but you only have a 30% chance of living, and if you are living, you're gonna be dependent for the rest of your life, maybe somebody would decide not to get the surgery and just live the rest of the years they have being dependent and, being able to live their life to the fullest, right? Or vice versa. So why, with this procedure, these kids and parents aren't getting all the information? And most people, because it's a narrative, it's an agenda, whether it's an evil agenda or maybe it's the big pharma to get as much money as they can, the medical industry to get as much money as they can. I do agree with her that some people have the best intentions, but I also think a lot of other people don't have the best intentions, and I actually think it's abusive and evil in a lot of ways. But I do agree that some people are just uneducated, and I think that they are on the right side of history, or they desperately want to be on the right side of history, so they're going forward with this. I don't know, really on the other end of that, it's just common sense. Like to say, like, do you really think giving adolescents or children the choice to completely stop the development of their brain, or to sterilize themselves, or to get rid of sexual organs? To me, any common sense human being would say no. So it's almost hard for me to give that sort of forgiveness to people. Oh, well, you thought you were doing the right thing, because it's like, you can have a basic IQ level and know that doesn't sound right. So me, is more of the selfish desire to be on the right side of history. It's a selfishness I want to be the right one. I want to be the virtuous one. I want to be the righteous one, even if it doesn't really make sense, the road that we're going down. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to get back to Candace Owens and hear Perez Hilton's response. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do it. Okay.
I will share what I think. And my understanding of being a conservative is you don't want other people telling you how to parent. And that's what I'll say. I mean, it
could be a defense for child abuse, though, right? I don't want people telling me how to parent, but I don't want children abused ever.
I don't want children abused either, but your perception of abuse might be different than my perception of abuse.
Perez is struggling, first of all, because, he is a part of the LGBTQ, just not as an ally, but I believe he's gay. And so he's struggling because he knows if he says the wrong thing, he's going to get canceled, even though he's survived cancellation before. Because remember, he's one of the paparazzi that harassed Britney Spears, a young woman, when she was having mental health struggles. He was one of those people that kept digging in that nail when a girl struggling with her mental health. So he's not the most self-righteous person in the world. However, to say that, you don't want to be told how to parent or how to live your life, I get that. That is a very conservative or libertarian belief, or even old school liberal belief. But again, that's like saying, like, I believe in honor killings with my children, and you shouldn't be telling me how to live or how to parent my children. I think it is a collective responsibility of society to protect children. Now, that can go too far. You are trying to parent other people's kids, because we see that now in schooling, where teachers think they know better than the parents, because in their mind they're protecting children. But I do think if someone's being abused as a child, it is really your responsibility as the person who's observing the abuse to say something. But let's continue.
That's very dangerous. That's a very dangerous.
So why should your perception have to do with her kids and her perception have to do with your kids. Why don't you parent your kids and you parent your
Exactly,
kids? and
absolutely.
everybody walk away.
So I think that walking away from that is very dangerous, and I will tell you why. We're talking about abuse, right? So I would not be comfortable with this argument if we were in the court of law and somebody said, "Hey, you've just been beating your children for 8 months and locked them in a basement," and someone said, "Let me parent my kids," or "Hey, you're
But
a man, you've been
also-
raping your child, for the last 10 years. Let me parent my kids." There are truths and there are untruths, and to me, it is a truth that having your child undergo transition is a form of child abuse.
I missed that.
That's your opinion. But also, I feel like, this is why we're here today.
Thought where, I don't know his name, and I don't even know if he goes by he, the trans man. I thought where he was going was, yes, you're right, some people's definition of abuse is different, but why should your definition of abuse trump everyone else's definition of abuse? If people feel like transitioning your child at such a young age with drastic, irreversible results, that's a form of abuse, and you say it's not a form of abuse, why should your idea that is not a form of abuse trump everyone else's idea? Because again, I think the most normie common sense person will say that sounds like a form of child abuse. And I agree with that. I do think it's a form of child abuse. So I think it is I think it's our responsibility, our collective responsibility to speak up about it, and that's why I do. All right, let's continue.
In the world out there, the amount of gender dysphoric young people that are going through any medical intervention, it's not that many.
That's not true.
That's
Would you have
not true.
numbers?
That's not true. That is not true.
I don't have numbers, I'm not gonna share, but
I do. Would you like to hear them?
it doesn't matter to me.
No, but
Not only is it not true, why does that matter? It's like having a community of 300 people and it says, well, there's only 3 kids being abused. Such a low number. Why should I care that there's a child being diddled by their father? It's just like one kid. It sounds really unempathetic if you think about it from the community of empathy, right? So I've heard people say this before. It's not so many, so who cares? It's kind of like, really? Is that how you see it? If one woman is being, sex forced upon her in a community, do you just go like, well, big deal, whoops, who is such one woman? I don't care if she's being AR'd. I don't care if she's, her body autonomy is being taken away from her. It's just one lady. It really, the argument is very weak and goes against sort of even the progressive ideology. But anyway, let's continue.
should, because you're saying something, right?
should.
So like we want to get to the truth here.
And then we'll share it and cite it.
Stop again. Because the reason why I'm saying is it goes against the progressive ideology. At some point, transgenderism was like less than 1% of society, but they want to change policies for that community in a small percentage of society. They want to change bathroom policies and sports policies when they're mixing the men and women in the same sports, or biological men with biological men, stuff like that, for a very, very small fraction of society, right? They want that. But if just a few kids are being abused, no big deal. Why should we care? It makes no sense, and again, it goes against their own ideology. But when you have very weak morals, principles, and values, it tends to sort of blow wherever the wind goes and wherever fits the narrative at the moment of having the conversation.
So there was a study that was done in the UK. Within a 6-year period of time, there was a 4,000% increase. There was another study that came out in Texas just a couple of months ago that mirrored the same 4,000%. So we have a 4,000% increase within children that are medically transitioned. If you take that 4,000% increase and you take what is made over a lifetime with synthetic hormones with these children, it's $1.3 million if you start a child at 14 and that child lives to 80 years old. That's $1.3 million. We're not talking about all the medical
But what I'm getting at is the amount of children or teenagers doing this. I don't think it's hundreds of thousands.
First of all, he just told you it was a 4,000 increase, and I love how Perez was like, yes, they didn't cite it, and he was like, okay then, and he did just that, and now he's just repeating the question that was just answered. It's a 4,000 increase. I guess that's not giving you actual numbers, but that should make you go, oh, that's a large increase. Why is that so, Perez?
It might not even be more than 10,000 a year, to be honest. I don't know. I'm not going to share a number that I don't know. But if I had to guess, in the United States, the amount of teenagers or pre-teens that are having any kind of hormone intervention, in the thousands, I'm guessing.
Okay, well,
and how many hundreds of millions of people and how many teenagers are there in America? Countless millions.
Okay.
So what you're saying is that
Let the parents
there's
parent
enough-
their children.
Again, this is coming from the progressive side that wants every single identity to have their lived experience heard. But if it's just 10,000 a year, kids having their lives completely ruined, who cares? Like the argument's weak. And I've heard people, I heard this argument before. It is a weak fucking argument. But let's continue.
So you are fine now that you've been given the facts of how this. By the way, these are the effects that have happened to somebody who did this as an adult, right?
Yes, and
we are
look
sharing,
at Caitlyn Jenner.
Right.
Caitlyn Jenner would
Right.
share a very different
But-
experience.
right.
She's transitioned
Well,
now
no,
for
Caitlyn
over.
has spoken out about the depression that Caitlyn faced post transitioning and things of that nature. But I do want to say this: you are now armed with more facts. We are telling you that this can render someone infertile. This can render somebody with.
Well, like I said at the very beginning, it wouldn't be my first go-to, but what would you? It's okay.
It's not about first go-to.
Okay, if you're a mother of two in 15 years, 12 years, if your child says,
First of all, they don't care about the facts. They care about the narrative. He cares about not being canceled. He cares about what fits the platform in the communities that he's in. Second of all, Caitlyn Jenner has actually come out and said she will be very against transitioning children, and she's against biological men being in female sports. So yeah, some people, very, very tiny percentage of people who experience actual gender dysphoria are successfully trans. Very, 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 very tiny fraction of people who actually experience the mental disorder, gender dysphoria. It's like, I have this one person I can give you, and I wouldn't even give you another, Blair White, but that completely eliminates the tens of thousands of kids who are making the wrong decisions because A, they're children, 2, they're adolescents, their brains aren't even finished developing, and the last part of your brain that develops is the part that is able to predict long-term causes and effects of your actions. 3, they're being lied to. 4, they're not being told all the negative effects that can happen. 5, the narrative is very, very propaganda-ish. Like, there's a lot of reasons why they're making the wrong decision. Because you have this one example that just neglects all of that, that just erases and voids out all of that. They don't care about the actual facts and truths and data. They care about their narrative. They don't even care about the lived experiences and the testimonies of the transitioners. Even though everyone else that they promote in their groups, every tiny little identity deserves to be heard except this one. Or in other groups like conservatives and pro-lifers and cis white men. Everyone else a part of the group deserves it. You can be the one person on the planet that identifies as a land whale or a orca, and your lived experience and identity needs to be respected. But detransitioners, who cares? It's such a tiny amount of people.
continues, not once, obviously. If your child over a period of months says, I'm going to kill myself.
I just told you that's
if
a
I don't
unicorn
do
fart.
this.
That's not true.
Well, let me ask the question.
Not true. Cite the study on that, because that is not true.
I'm just
medically
asking the
transitioning
question.
A whole generation of children, because you just said that, and you are fundamentally wrong.
In
on that.
your opinion.
No, it's not an
Okay.
opinion. It is not
Well,
an
my
opinion.
question was directed to
That
Candace.
is not an opinion. All 7
That
studies
is
that
your
said that.
opinion.
No, it's a retraction on 7 studies.
Okay.
You cannot say that and have it true. The odds
All right.
of those kids committing suicide will happen to 7 to 10 years after. You want
Okay.
to talk about facts and feelings? We'll do it. But don't say these kids are going to kill themselves.
I didn't say that.
The
Did I
odds
say
are
that?
is they will.
Okay, so
after they
you're
medically
presenting.
I said if a child tells
Okay.
you over the period of months.
Okay, so he's very passionate and emotional because he have lived experience in this. And second, he's right. A lot of activists uses this rhetoric as a reason to let children transition is that they're going to kill themselves, where there is no evidence, data, or studies to show that to be the actual fact. It's not an opinion, it is a study. You can dispute the study and say the study is wrong, or it had biased results, or the way they even did the study was really biased and whatever, but there is no studies that prove that kids, if they don't get to do this, will off themselves. And sometimes if they do, it's not because they were trans or their transphobia. A lot of times it's because they come from really shitty homes, and that is the reason why. And if you look at the detransition testimonies, overwhelmingly so, once they realize they're not actually trans, they realize that they were actually dealing with a lot of childhood trauma that was never resolved. They never got proper therapy for it, because the therapy they're going to is just to confirm their gender and not to actual therapy. Or they have this, some other personality disorder, identity disorder, or they're autistic. There's other reasons why somebody might commit suicide. It might not be a direct cause of them being trans or even belonging to the queer community. But let's continue.
Well, you take them to the hospital and you have them seen for suicidal ideation.
Right. I would not put them on something that I know is going to long-term give them real suicidal thoughts, because they've realized they can't go back, and their parents have assigned, truth to what was just a feeling, right? It is my opinion that there is no such thing as transitioning. Yes, you can medically castrate yourself. Yes, you can get a bunch of cosmetic procedures. At the end of the day, you can't just transition to be a man or to be a woman. I am a woman. I can, there are things that women can do that men cannot. And because I have looked into this issue and I've spoken to people that are being silenced, there are so many people like Scott that are coming out and saying, listen to my story. Early onset osteoporosis, people's bones. Could you imagine your bones deteriorating?
Boys.
Yeah, for a child, for boys. If you go on these hormone blockers, right? Not being able to have children, that's a big.
But it also goes back to what I said a minute ago. I don't know the number, but I'm guessing it's not that many young people.
What do you mean when you say, what do you expect, I guess, the reaction to be if you go, well, it's just not that many people? Does that somehow justify Maren Morris signaling that this is just an LG? Because it's not. To me, the T issue should be knocked off. LGB, you're talking about a sexual preference. When you're talking about transitioning, you're talking about medical procedures. You're talking about castrating children.
Stopping it there. I know I'm stopping in between talking because I'm missing my opportunities and windows to stop it. And I believe that there are actual transgenders out there. It's a real thing. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. But again, it's the tiny minority of children or people who experience gender dysphoria will actually be trans adults. Most of them grow up to be gay men and women. I think you can transition to the point where society treats you as the gender that you prefer. So you can go through life as a woman and as a man, but you will never be that gender, ever. You will never be that sex. You will never be actual man. You will never be an actual woman. But you can do the best you can to be treated that way and to be seen that way. But let's continue.
You're talking about castrating children.
Some trans people don't have medical intervention.
But we're here discussing children, because you and I disagreed about the children.
Yes.
What about?
All right, guys, that was Candace, Owens, Perez, Hilton, and Scott. I guess that is his name, a trans man who was on What is Woman and has a horrible, testimony. But he's using his testimony to help other people and other parents be educated about what's going on with these trans kids and adolescents. I do want to point out, and this is not a dig at Scott, how this is why I won't debate people on things that I'm very close to, because I know I will get emotional. Like, I won't debate people on the MAPS thing, which is, minor attracted person. Make a video about that later on my other channel. It's very hard for me to try to debate somebody on when it comes to child abuse, because I'm so close to it, because I was abused as a child, and I know I will just get emotional. It's not a dig at Scott, but you saw how Candace Owens calmly had to sort of bring it back and calmly bring it back to the conversation, because a lot of times what people will do when they don't want to give you an inch, they will use whatever you've done that can be seen as a negative as a reason to dismiss everything you said, right? Oh, you just got emotional, you just got angry, you were aggressive, you weren't listening, whatever, right? I also want to give a congrats to Perez Hilton from having the balls to actually have this conversation with Candace and Scott. Most people that is in his community or in his realm won't have this conversation out of just truly the fear of just saying the wrong thing to their community, about their community, and getting canceled or whatever. So I do want to say thank you to Perez for having the conversation, even though you were all the way wrong. But let me know what you think of this video, what I said, what they said in the comment section below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell to get the notifications when I do upload. All of that really does help with the algorithm, guys. And if you'd like to support this channel even further, you can donate. My PayPal link is in the description box below and also in the comment section. Of course it helps, but you don't have to. You can just like, comment, and subscribe. Another great way to support this channel is either join my branding membership program, different levels, different tiers, different perks, or you can visit my branding merch shop, links down below, and links to all of my eternal platforms, my minds.com, my Rumble, my Odyssey, my Discord, my TikTok, and the links to all of my other YouTube channels and the links down below. And if you like, you can super thanks. I also have a second travel vlog channel. I travel as a lifestyle. I live abroad. If you'd like to know where I am in the world, you can go to the description box below and also in the comment section. Hit the link, go subscribe to my travel vlog channel, and or follow me on my travel Instagram. My stories is usually what's most up to date. And you guys have an amazing day. Bye.